Welcome to Two Funny Astronauts. I'm your co-host, Garrett Reisman.
And I'm your other co-host, Mike Massimino. And remember, Two Funny Astronauts, we're not saying we're funny people. We're just saying we're funny for astronauts.
The low bar.
Low bar. But today, Garrett, we have a special guest who really is not only a funny astronaut, but a very funny person. Our good friend.
Right, for a human being.
For a human being.
I would consider him
funny.
For
a regular guy, for anybody, this guy is funny. One of the funniest astronauts ever. Charlie Camarda, our good friend and colleague, is with us today. Charlie, thanks for coming on and spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me, guys. And now you're making me nervous. Now I'm supposed to be funny. But when I first heard that you two guys were doing this, and when I heard the first couple of podcasts, I said, "This is amazing. This is amazing. You got everything covered. You got a tall Italian guy, you got a short Jewish guy, you got all the jokes covered. You got a lock on everything. As a matter of fact,
yes, it is a good deal. And to our listeners, as you can hear immediately, it's kind of obvious. Charlie, thank you for joining us today from Wichita.
Hey, Garrett,
it's good that
go ahead.
It's good that you can take time out from milking the cows to join us here on the show. Thank you very much.
Never mind.
Believe it or not, Garrett, I spent over half my life in the South.
Yeah.
Really.
Oh, in Langley, because
you can take the boy.
That's right.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Garrett.
No.
I was going to say you can take the boy out of New York City, but you can't take the New York City out of the boy. I don't care where you move to. Yeah. You could be on I don't care what planet you go to. You're still from New York City, Charlie.
Let me tell you, it was definitely culture shock when I left Queens, New York, and drove down the Eastern Shore to live in Hampton, Virginia. I didn't know what the heck to expect. I remember pulling over and getting my car, getting gas. I remember the guy came out and filled my tank, and then he started washing the windows, and I went to tip him. And he said, "Oh no, I can't take a tip." And I go, "Oh my God, where the hell am I moving to? What is happening?" But anyway,
was it weird that when you went into like a fancy restaurant, you went into the bathroom? Did you feel strange that there wasn't a guy there to hand you a lollipop and some cologne?
I always thought that was a great. How do you get those jobs, Garrett? I don't know. How do you apply for those jobs? What are the qualifications for those jobs? But I mean, it was a respectable job, just like doorman in New York, right? Doorman is a professional job.
Doorman is a serious job in New York City. It keeps the city. I think the only reason the city is a safe place is because of the doorman. No one gets by those guys. They're always there.
Waiters.
They're always guarding the door.
Waiters and waitresses in New York. I grew up. My buddy's father was a waiter. And it was a professional waiter in a great restaurant in Manhattan. I mean, those were great jobs.
That's some serious skill there. But Gary, we've got so many stories. Garrett, I hate to interrupt with a story already, but you were talking about the animals with Charlie milking a cow. Charlie, do you remember we were in the we're going to get into our nose training, but just to set us up, Charlie and I were and Garrett as well, of course, New Yorkers, and we didn't really have that much exposure to a lot of wild animals and the outdoors and everything. And we were at an airport. Charlie, I think we were like in Colorado Springs or some place out there when we were going on Knowles trip. And we went to the airport, and Dex was with us, and there was a bunch of animals like set up in a display, like real animals that were stuffed. They were there. It said, "Welcome to Colorado. These are the animals you can kill." So and they had like a bunch of them, and one of them we didn't know what it was. They had like ones we would recognize. And I remember Dex was looking for his luggage. He was kind of irritated a little bit. Our friend Alan Poindexter, and Charlie's like, "Mike, what animal is that over there?" And I'm looking at this thing. I don't know what the hell it is. I don't know. I don't know. And we go, "Dex, what is that thing over there?" And he looks at it. He goes, "It's a mountain goat." I'm like, "Oh, it's a mountain goat." And he kind of is like irritated with the New Yorkers, and he points at the one next to it. He goes, "And that's a bear." And I was.
You know what I thought you were going to say? You know what I thought you were going to say, Mike, is that there was a jackalope there, and you actually thought it was a real animal.
That would have fooled me. No, that one would have fooled me.
Yeah, anyway. You know what a jackalope is, right?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
I remember going on I went to a camp.
Okay, Garrett, because these are the jokes, Garrett. These are the jokes. You got to laugh, Garrett. You're not laughing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, yeah. No, I don't know it. No, I don't know, Jack. But I remember going on this hike when I was in camp with this kid, Eric Pfefferman, a kid from we all grew up in Jersey there, and now he's out in the wilderness for the first time. We're hiking, we see a bunch of deer, and he goes, "Oh, look at those cows!" We're like, "Oh man."
No, actually, believe it or not, Mike, boys. I grew up, as you know, in Ozone Park, Queens. We had a dairy farm.
Really?
Like a half a mile away from my house, we had a dairy farm in Ozone Park, Queens. Plus, I was in the Boy Scouts. I don't know. Were you in the Boy Scouts, Mike?
I was in the Boy Scouts. We had different. You had different merit badges in New York City than they did the rest of the country, though.
Oh
like
yeah.
New York City subway merit badge, cleaning up graffiti merit badge,
picking pockets,
identifying the different species of rats. Yeah, that was the merit badges we had. A little bit different than the rest of the country.
I hate to say it, Mike. It's hard to believe when I hear you say that you were a Boy Scout, because I was on survival training with you. I don't. So what were you like? Did you make it to first class scout, or were you still going through the?
No,
I
only made it to Webelow. I never really was a Boy Scout. I guess I was a Cub Scout.
That's a Cub Scout, Mike.
Yeah, I was a Cub Scout. I never made it to Boy Scout. I made it to Webelow.
Man, that's something we have. That's something we have in common. I failed out of the Webelow.
How about you, Gary?
I couldn't handle the pressure. All those badges, there's all that pressure. You gotta be constantly earning new badges, and I couldn't handle it.
You were definitely an underachiever, huh?
Yeah, no, it was too much stress. But
Charlie, you made it. You were a Boy Scout. You made it to Boy Scout.
I made it to Boy Scout, and I actually made it to first class Scout. I was in Troop 91. I was the knot tying champ of Troop 91.
Wow, you worked good with tying knots.
I was an overachiever.
Yeah,
but of course, we had some people in the astronaut office. You had some people that made it to Order of the Palms, Eagle Scout. We had Don Pettit that. He was off the charts. I think he used to run around naked in the woods and got a special merit badge in the Boy Scouts, the Explorer Scouts. I made it up through the Boy Scouts, but of course, it was very hard, Garrett. I don't know how it was in New Jersey, but pitching a tent and hitting those tent pegs through the asphalt was a little bit more difficult than when you were out in the woods.
That's right.
It was a little bit different.
It was hard. Yeah. Getting the stakes to the sidewalk is tough.
But anyway, I think you have an ideal. I think you got an ideal program. I think with all the diverse people we have in the astronaut office, I think you could promote jobs for astronauts, for ex-astronauts to do lots of different things, kind of like cable. And Netflix, right? You could have two crazy astronauts could do a show.
Yeah.
Better yet, two narcissistic astronauts. How many of those do we have? Right?
Oh man, you can have a whole channel.
You started something. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
All those guys are going to come out of retirement and start doing other jobs now. We're going to get cast in roles.
I never really thought this was. You consider this to be a job. What's your job? I'm a crazy astronaut.
That's another story. But that's another story. Of course, we had a very large class.
We did, and I'm really glad you liked the show, Charlie, and really thrilled that you're actually the person that's been listening. We've been searching for you. We didn't, and so thanks for listening. And you've already, we have this thing going. We're all from the same area, though very different, of course. Garrett was in New Jersey, I was in Long Island, and you were really in the city, born in Brooklyn, if I remember right, and raised in
right on the borderline. On the borderline. I was Ozone Park, which was right next to East New York, which was Brooklyn, right?
Yeah.
So we have the 5 boroughs, of course, but really, if you grew up in one of the 5 boroughs, New York, Manhattan was really New York.
Yeah, and that's still New York being the city. But it's it's what's kind of interesting is that when you think about when I was a kid thinking about people who grew up to be astronauts, you thought of someone from the country or John Glenn from Ohio or something like that. But you can do it from anywhere, even from New York City, right? Where you're not exposed to a lot of outdoor stuff necessarily.
And then look at what we found out: how many New York astronauts there are, right?
Yeah, there's a lot.
Bill Shepardson, and Kevin Kriegel, Ellen Baker, Mario Runco.
Yeah. I'm not sure I know Bill Shepardson. See?
Bill Shepard. Shep. He actually.
They're making new astronauts all the time. No, there could be guys.
I don't want to get him.
So for our listeners, let me just interject that Bill Shepard was the first commander on the ISS. He was also a former Navy SEAL, and he was famous for, amongst other things, when he came in for his astronaut interview, they asked him, "Do you have any special skills that we should be aware of that are unique to compared to the other candidates?" And he sat back and he thought about it for a bit, and he looked right at the board and he said, "I'm very good at killing a man with a knife." And so they hired him because they were too scared to say no.
Yeah,
right. And that's the guy that you just forgot his name. And
Bill Shepard.
I would be nervous if I were you.
He's going to kill me. How many times we did gigs at the Cradle of Aviation in Long Island?
Yeah.
He lives right here in Virginia Beach. He's a great guy. Really, really sharp guy. Really quiet guy.
Yeah.
And so. We were going to talk about water survival, right? And I live in Virginia Beach, and there's lots of Navy SEALs around here. I got a Navy SEAL right across the lake from me. I love it. A Navy SEAL and a cop. I don't have to buy a gun. I don't have to have a knife. I'm totally protected. But when I first got the call that I was going to be an astronaut, right? I remember I can't swim, Mike. I know you could hardly swim. I was afraid of heights. I couldn't swim, and I was claustrophobic. So I had, I had the trifecta.
Did you put that on the application?
No. We were all trying to hide this. We were trying to hide this, right? Like, oh yeah, I have no problem with claustrophobia. Remember the time, Mike, me and you were in the spacesuit?
Yeah.
I don't know. Did you have claustrophobia, Mike?
No, that one I got away with. That was okay.
So
the
you
fear
just
of
had
heights,
and
I didn't like the water. I don't like going fast. I'm not a thrill seeker, but claustrophobia didn't bother me. I grew up, I'm a taller person, and I grew up. My parents, they put me in the same bed as my brother, who was shorter, so I was used to being crushed. I grew up in this little. So I don't know. Claustrophobia wasn't an issue for me. I was okay with that.
I had the same experience. Only my brother wasn't that much taller than me, right? But Garrett, did you have any of those phobias?
No,
you didn't have any of them. Wow.
No, it's fine. They put me in a little ball, where they test the claustrophobia thing. For when you're down there for your astronaut interview, they stick you in this ball, and they zip it up. It's like a beach ball. You have to crunch up inside of it. It must have been really uncomfortable for you, Mass. But
no, it's fine.
But they put a little heart rate monitor on you, and a little headset so you could talk to people. And then they put you in this little tiny room. They close the door. They don't tell you when they're coming back, and they just wait and see if your heartbeat kind of takes off. They know you're claustrophobic. I fell asleep in there.
I know.
Right? And they kept waking me up.
I know. And that's what.
And they kept waking me up saying that like I'm invalidating the test by falling asleep. I'm like, I think I'm validating the. If I can fall asleep in here, I think I'm fine, right?
That's what I was going to say, Garrett, because I have claustrophobia, but me and you, we're little guys. They put us in that ball. I was kind of spacious in there, but I couldn't imagine somebody like Massimino climbing in that little ball. So it really wasn't a good claustrophobia test, obviously, because I passed, right? But
right.
But anyway,
you're right. It was bigger for us. We could have called some friends over and had a party.
Yeah. You could have called me over, Garrett, but not any big guys like Massimino.
Right.
But I wanted to go ahead.
I was going to say you meant you do it. I just want to say you've mentioned that you've watched some of our previous broadcasts. and you've heard some or listened or whatever, and you heard some of our survival stories. And I think what's interesting about that is that you and I went through a lot of that training together. So you could either verify or rebut anything that you've heard.
No,
I wanted to give you that opportunity.
I want to add a little.
Come on, Charlie. I want to hear the truth. Let's hear it.
This is the unvarnished truth, Garrett, and you can always count on me. But I wanted to add a little bit of context because I'm glad you talked about the story when we were doing survival training and doing water survival, especially. That was especially difficult for me and Mike Massimino. And just like Mike, I was trying to practice before I went down there. So I had this Navy SEAL buddy, and he tried teaching me these strokes. He was like old school Navy SEAL. He was like one of the frogmen. I had a picture of him with a Gemini capsule. Tom Sutherland, great guy, crazy guy. And he says, "Yeah, Charlie, I'll help you get ready for this training." So he takes me in the swimming pool. He's trying to put me through all the strokes. When he finally figures out that I cannot swim, he says, "This is the only stroke you really need." And it was this survival stroke that they teach the Navy SEALs, which is basically you jump in the pool, you float with your head with your face in the water. And you keep your face in the water. And then when you want to breathe, you just move your hands a little bit together like this, pick your head up, breathe, and you put your head. And I could do that, right? But we get down to the astronaut office. You got to do the front crawl. You got to do the side stroke. You got to do the breaststroke. You got to do the backstroke. And it's like, why do you need all these strokes? Really? I mean, and what good are they for? Is there a purpose for these strokes other than the Olympics, right? I'm just glad we didn't have to do the butterfly. Can you imagine if we had to do the butterfly with our boots on, trying to go, But anyway, Mike, you talked about the one thing you mentioned, and I thought I was the only guy that saw this, right? But our instructor in the pool. And this guy was a little guy, like about my height, and he was like a cross between Johnny Weissmuller and who was the other guy?
Jack LaLanne.
Anyway, and Jack LaLanne, exactly.
Can we?
And I swear,
yeah, go ahead.
I swear to God, when Mike said this, what impressed you about this guy, Mike, is that his body was out of the water. Did you not have the same guy, Garrett?
He had to.
I don't think so. I don't remember
that guy
this.
started back in the Revolutionary War, and he's still there now. I guarantee it. This guy's always there.
If you would have had this guy, you would have remembered him.
John Paul
He
Jones
was the first guy. And now he's got
he wrote a survival book. A matter of fact, I bought this survival book, right? But exactly what Mike said, he stood out of the water. He was in the middle of the pool, and I swear to God, he had his two hands on his hips like this, and his entire torso was out of the water.
It's like Jesus.
And he's talking to us like, today you're going to do 2 laps of the breaststroke, and then you're going to do the side stroke. And he's talking like this. And his feet must have been doing, the egg beater underneath the water like this. He must have had he must have had the metabolism of a freaking hummingbird. But he was just talking naturally. He was just talking naturally.
Wow.
But the other story Mike told,
wait,
which was about me.
Let's just go back for 1 second. Johnny Weissmuller, for those of you who don't know, Garrett, do you know who he was?
I know.
He's Tarzan.
Oh, right.
And Buster Crabbe was this guy, was like an exercise guy back in the day, back like in the 60s.
Not
Jack
LaLanne, I'm sorry, whoever it was. Jack LaLanne was an exercise
Bill
guy.
Shepperson. Bill Shepperson.
Bill Shepperson, yeah. Buster Crabbe was another one of those Tarzan guys.
Buster Crabbe.
No,
Buster Crabbe. It was a silent movie.
No, that's Buster Keaton.
That was Charlie Chaplin.
That was Charlie Chaplin. No, that's Gloria. That's Gloria Swanson.
Oh, he was Buster Crabbe. He was
one of those guys. Anyway, all right. So Charlie, go back to your story.
The story you told about me.
Right.
The story you told about me, and this is absolutely true. Mike and I were standing on the side of the pool with Piers Sellers. God rest his soul. Piers was an amazing guy. He was actually helping us. He was helping us learn how to swim. You got to remember, Garrett, we had a class of 44. We weren't all nice guys like in your class. This was dog eat dog. This was dog eat dog. We wanted to fly in space, and some some of our good friends would throw you under the bus to fly in space. We're not going to mention any names, but Pierce Sellers was standing on the side of the pool with Mike when I jumped in, and you heard Mike's perspective. He said he looked down, he saw bubbles coming up, he saw me standing on the bottom of the pool. And then he went off to the side and he said, I better learn how to blow into this life preserver unit, LPU.
Well, truthfully, the first thing I said was, as I went to one of those Navy guys, one of those rescue swimmer guys, and I said, hey, look down there. That guy has a problem. If you don't help, if you kill him, there's going to be a lot of paperwork. You know, and not like the other.
And,
if you kill one of us, there's going to be paperwork. Boom, he went in.
You know, not for nothing, Mike. I thought you were pretty much of a douchebag that wouldn't jump in and save me. But when you mentioned that you really did, try to get somebody to help me, you might have saved my life.
The other thing, Charlie, if I would have jumped in to get you, there would have been 2 bodies at the bottom of the pool. So I did it for both. You go get him. And Piers and I are going to figure out how to work this life preserver or whatever it was.
I think I must have had a learning disorder when I was a kid. I must have had ADD. Whatever the problem was, I was so scared. I was terrified. And I just had like a flashback not too long ago about the terror that I felt standing on the side of that pool, knowing that I had to jump in. And while this person is explaining to us, well, here's what you have to do. You have to grab the nozzle like this, but whatever you do, don't jump in and try to blow air into that LPU. Tread water, get comfortable, and I'm like, I'm not paying attention to anything. I said, screw this guy. The minute I go in there, I'm going to jump in, I'm going to lock my lips around that valve, and I'm going to blow everything in my lungs into this life preserver. Then I'll come up to the top of the water, I'll take a breath, and then I'll blow another. And so that was my plan. I did not hear the details. I did not hear the details of how to blow the air. So I jump in on the side of the pool. I jump in. I think I was the first one to jump in, which was what terrified Mike, right? I jump in and I go straight to the bottom. I have boots on. We got combat boots on. We got we got a parachute harness. Straight to the bottom of the pool. I'm on the bottom of the pool with my lips around this thing, still blowing, and all of a sudden, and I feel this tug. This guy is like pulled me up. The diver that Mike basically pointed to pulled me up to the top of the pool, and I come up. And I'm exhausted. I go to the side of the pool. I do it again. I did it about 6 times, Garrett. I did this 6 times. On the last time, it was like, I'm almost going to give up. I'm going to say, you know what? I don't want to be an astronaut. The diver is looking at me.
At any point here, did you think maybe I should change the plan?
Yeah.
Maybe this is a bad plan.
It's a bad career. Bad career choice is what he was thinking.
Bad career choice.
It's the definition of insanity. The same thing, expecting a different outcome every time, right? It's the definition of insanity. I look up at the side of the pool, and the diver looks down at me, and he goes, Charlie, you're supposed to push that little stem in before you blow into the life preserver. And I saw this guy at dinner that night, and I said, why didn't you tell me that? Why didn't you tell me that the first time you saw me struggling? He said, Charlie, when I told you that, your eyes lit up like silver. I said, no kidding. No kidding. It was crazy. But you want to know what's even crazier, Mike? Yeah. Later on, I was at one of those Association for Space Explorer dinners. Did you ever join Association of Space Explorers?
I'm a lifetime member, apparently.
Okay, yeah. You joined. Right. Garrett, you a member?
I'm a lifetime member.
I've never been to an event yet. Only the virtual events. They've had a couple.
Yeah, me neither. Me neither. Yeah. I'm always too busy.
I'm telling you.
I think it's a great thing. Like once you're retired and you got time to do this stuff.
Exactly.
You got to go to Hungary in the middle of October for a week. Who's got time to do that?
I was in Austria. Anyway. But when I was there.
I got kids.
Yeah, we got to wait. It's something we'll do if we make it a little bit further along here, age-wise, and we'll all meet over there. But right now, we're trying to work for a living. Still, believe it or not.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Mike. Now you're like telling age jokes.
No.
But what I was going to say,
we're all in the same boat.
No.
You're still working.
No.
We all know who Johnny. Look. We all know who Johnny Weissmuller and Jack LaLanne are.
Yeah.
So we're obviously of the same age.
We fell short with Buster Crab, but we had the rest of them.
Buster Crab.
What about Bill Shepardson?
We're not exactly appealing to the younger demographic.
But anyway, I was at one of those.
This might be bad for your brand, Charlie.
I was at one of those meetings, right? And I was telling this story to Jerry Ross. And Jerry looks at me and says, well, I didn't pass the scuba test. I said, what are you talking about? He said, no, I never passed the scuba test. This guy flew in space like 6-7 times. He did God knows how many EVAs, right? And he didn't but Mike, if I would have known we didn't have to pass this test, I would have tapped out on the first time. I'm done.
But I think that might be two different things, though, Charlie, because the water survival thing, we needed that to fly in the airplane. We were down there in Pensacola to fly in the jet in case you bailed out of the airplane, in case you ejected out of the airplane.
Oh, so maybe you didn't need it for scuba.
The scuba thing was worse. That scuba test we had to go through. Do you remember that? That was for the NBL. That's probably what Jerry. I don't know if he didn't pass anything, but But you didn't, because I think there was. I don't think you needed to be scuba certified to go inside of the spacesuit and train for spacewalks. They would not let you scuba dive in the pool, but I think the official rule probably was. But it was kind of assumed by us because we didn't know any better that you needed to be scuba qualified in order to do, and you really did, because I don't know how you learned so much when you went scuba diving. But that scuba test was worse than water survival, from what I remember.
Yes,
it was. And the other thing, there weren't too many tests they give you at NASA that are like,
yeah. I don't know.
I think so.
I think you
like go to the simulator, learn how to fly the shuttle if you want.
Yeah, I don't know. It might have been. I think Jerry Ross grandfathered his way into that one. You know, he just had I think that rule might have changed, or who knows what happened. But I don't see how they would have never let us get away with that in one of our astronaut classes.
You're absolutely Mike, right? The scuba test was definitely hard.
I remember the scuba test. But the scuba test. We had to do that ditch and don. Remember that thing we had to go down as unassisted?
Yes.
That was I thought that was the toughest thing. You had to go down there and take off without any air, right? You had to do a breath hold.
Yeah.
40 breath hold, come back up,
yeah.
And you could tread water for as long as you wanted. They said there's no time. You can for an hour and a half if you want to tread water. But eventually, you got to go back down.
Which wasn't long.
Well, you didn't want to do
You
had to go take a breath and go back down and get all that stuff on. And then come up and clear the mask. Remember that? With no air. You couldn't. It was all breath hold. You had to clear it. And if you had any water in the mask, they're like, nope, do it again. So I remember I got that thing done. I was like, I'm never gonna do this again. And we had to stay current in scuba to do that, right?
Yeah, because you don't want to have to requalify.
You don't want to have to requalify.
That's not
so I was flying with Kevin Kriegel, and he goes, you know what happened? I go, what? He goes, my scuba qual lapsed, right? And Kevin was a pilot, so he wasn't looking to do a spacewalk or anything. So I said, really, what are you going to do? You're going to have to take that test again? He goes, I'm not going to take that test again until they change it. I go, what do you mean? He goes, it's too hard right now. Something's going to happen, and they're going to have to change it, and I'm not taking it until they change it. No kidding. Like a year or two after that, someone had a shallow water blackout doing that thing. They passed out, and then they went down and got him, and then they said, all right, that's it. You're not doing that anymore. And he was right. Smart guy. He goes, no, that's too tough. But that was I thought, the toughest thing that they had us doing was that thing.
That's interesting that you say that, Mike, because the hardest thing for me in that whole scuba test, I cannot hold my breath for a long time. You know, and I don't know why, but I tried and tried. I remember Mike and me lived in the same neighborhood. We used to go to the same swimming pool, and we would practice. And I remember we were doing all the things that people tell you not to do, like hyperventilate before, so that you hyperventilate, and then you go and you dive in and you see how far you could go. And so we had to swim like across the entire width of the NBL. That was the hardest
Underwater.
thing for me. I felt like if I was ever going to black out, I was going to black out during
that I was
that.
okay with, but somebody else.
Charlie,
Go ahead, Jared.
you mentioned swimming in your pool growing up in the neighborhood there. I remember a story. Would you tell the story about your fishing expedition and what happened with that pool?
First,
I remember that. I remember that to this day. You told me that probably like 20 years ago, and that's hysterical.
Garrett, who told you this story? Are you allowed to reveal?
You told me.
I told you this story.
Yeah. Like it was like 20 years ago. No more.
No, it was like 40,
years
50 years ago. No, but anyway, I was a troubled child, to say the least. I had problems. And that's another whole major episode. But I grew up in Ozone Park, Queens, which was right next to Howard Beach. John Gotti, So I grew up. It was not a tough neighborhood, but anyway, we were bad kids. We used to get in a little trouble. And I was fishing in Rockaway. Me and my friends were there, and we're casting out from the shore, and we're trying to catch a fish. And we're casting out, and my line got tangled, and it just went like 10 feet out and dropped in the water. And I get a sand shark. And this thing hits me, and I pull this sand shark in. So all my friends are all excited. My friend, can I mention his name? Joe Ponte was there, one of the, and he starts beating the crap out of this thing. He kills the land shark. I think the sand shark with his hand.
Only New Yorkers would go fishing and then beat their catch to death with clubs.
Well, this was a vicious predator.
Your friend? Your friend or the shark? Who was the vicious predator?
Tony Conti? What's his name?
Joe Ponte. My good friend Joe Ponte.
Joe Ponte.
That's another.
Joe Ponte.
Everybody had a Joe Ponte in this neighborhood. He was a great guy, and that's another whole several episodes. But anyway, he kills this shark. I'm like, Joe, take it easy. He's like punching the shark. He's hitting it. He kills the shark. And he said, what are we going to do with this shark? So he says, let's take it back to the neighborhood and let's throw it in the swimming pool.
He killed the shark.
Right?
Wait a minute, he killed the shark with his bare hands? He didn't have a bat or anything. He just beat it up.
I don't think he had a bat.
Beat up the
I don't
shark.
think he had a bat because all we had were fishing poles, and he wasn't hitting it with a fishing pole. I think he just punched it with that.
So his idea then is to take this thing to the swimming pool.
To take it back to the swimming pool. So we had my father's car. We carried the shark. We put it in the trunk. We take it back. We take it back to the little neighborhood park, Centerville Park in Ozone Park. We had a little 4-foot pool, which was a big deal. But we had a lifeguard, and no one was there. We crept into the park. We put the shark in the pool. And then the next day, we figured, okay, we'll see what happens. Because my friend was the lifeguard, and he didn't care. He was anxious to have a day off anyway, right? So we come in there, and I remember the parkie sees me coming in. He says, I know you threw that shark in the pool, Kamada. I know you threw that. Get on the outside. He kicked me out of the park. I wasn't allowed in the neighborhood park. I think I was suspended for like a week or two, which was a major big deal when we were kids. But, I mean, is that not something you would have thought of to do in your neighborhood, Garrett?
I don't know about my neighborhood, but it reminds me of a story. So my dad grew up in Newark, all right? And he got a job as a lifeguard at the YMCA in Newark. And he's up in the lifeguard stand. It's his first day on the job. He like just got there. He didn't know anything about the place or the layout or anything. And a kid comes up to him like 5 minutes after he's on the job, and he goes, Mr. Lifeguard, I got to go to the bathroom. And my dad doesn't know where the bathrooms are. So he goes, just go in the pool, kid. And so like 5 minutes later, all the kids are jumping out of the pool, going, duty! It's like that scene in Caddyshack. The kid took a dump in the pool.
He didn't tell him it was number 2?
No, he didn't tell him. My dad thought he had to pee. And so my dad's like, oh man, so like this isn't going well, and his boss hears a commotion. So his boss comes running down to the pool from like the office or whatever, and he goes to the little kid, why did you did you do that? And the kid goes, yes. And he goes, why did you do that? And the little kid goes, he told me to. And he points right at my dad. And my dad's like, and then his boss goes, Reisman, you're fired. Now clean that up. And my dad goes, wait a minute, I'm fired? He goes, yeah. He goes, well, then you clean it up. And that was the end of his career as a lifeguard.
That guy was not too smart, right, Garrett? He
fired him before
said, "Oh, that's
great."
To clean it up.
Yeah, now you. Hey guys, you know,
you got to string them along until you get the dirty job.
I think we're out of time. I'm getting the time here, so that went quick. But
wow, that
Charlie,
went fast.
if you can hang around, we'll do another episode that we can. You got some more? You got some more? We haven't even scratched the surface.
I got like 10 pages here. We didn't even get past the first.
Well, we're gonna sign this. We're gonna sign off this one here, and we'll be back with another episode with Charlie coming up here shortly.
Yes, but before we do, Charlie, what are you working on these days? What do you got going? Is there something you want to talk about? I'm writing a book on high performing teams, and we could talk about that maybe later, but a lot of I worked for NASA for 46 years. And so a lot of teams I worked on when I was at Langley, a lot of teams that I worked on, even for return to flight on my mission. So I'm in the process of writing a book where I'm going to be doing a podcast. And we're creating a podcast called Leading Edge Discovery, where, I was on the return to flight mission. And what I want to do is showcase the really great subject matter experts from the different research centers that basically did the lion's share of the work in understanding what caused the accident and helping us get back up and flying, developing the technology to keep us safe.
Cool. And we know you're doing a lot of work in education as well, Charlie.
That's great.
Yeah, and that's another thing. If we talk about Don Pettit, this is one of the things later that we could talk about. With Don Pettit, that led into the education part, the stuff we did in Don Pettit's garage.
Well, we have a lot of material for some more episodes. I think we'll call this one now. What do you think, Garrett? And
I think that we should wrap this up now, and
we'll get a part 2 with Charlie here coming up. So stay tuned for that, folks.
Yeah.
More Massimino, more Garrett. We got some Garrett stories.
Mainly, we want Charlie stories.
That's right. So come back. We want Charlie stories. Yeah, they're funnier. So come back for that. And in the meantime, make sure you like and subscribe to our channel.
Yeah,
that helps us out very much. Thank you.
Actually, we'd rather you subscribe and like than listen. That's actually at this point. But if you listen, we hope you like it. For real. Okay.
Thanks, right. We hope you like it. Thanks for coming.
Hey, Mike, I have an errata for the Joe Ponte story. I just called him up, and he clarified we did not kill the shark, but he did hit it with his hands. We brought it back to the park in a cooler. It was actually alive, and it was actually swimming in the pool for a couple hours before it died. So that's the actual version of the story. I had to call him up to clarify it, but I got one thing right. He did beat it with his hands. He knocked it out. Talk to you later, buddy. Bye.